You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel. To our next guest, Malcolm from the Sheppey Horticultural Society. As always, it's great to have you along with us this evening.
Yeah, hello Daniel. Yeah, thank you for inviting me along again. Yeah, it's good to be here.
So I was hoping you could tell us if there's any latest news from the Horticultural Society.
Everything's running well. Membership is coming along quite good. January and February, that's the time when our annual fees are due. And there hasn't been any increase in prices this year, so for a 10-rod allotment plot, it still costs £46.50 for the year. That's comprising of £25 for the rent, £20 for water, and £1.50 for society membership subscription. A 5-rod plot allotment, it's £24 for the year. That's comprising of £12.50 for the ground rent, £10 for water, and £1.50 for society membership again. There are a few other plots at varying sizes, and the rents and water rates, they alter accordingly for those. This is the time as well when people gave up their plots if they've decided that they've had enough. So a few plots have come vacant at our Medway Road site. But at Richmond Street and Nursery Close, there's still a waiting list. So for more information or to go on the waiting list, contact our secretary, which is Mr. Brian Williams, on 0785 1253 603. Or simply call into one of the sites on a Sunday morning and visit the shops. Both ends of the Society, Richmond Street and Midway Road, each have a shop, and they're open between 9 and 12 o'clock. Now, at the end of last year, the children's nursery at De Lacy Hall, they informed us that they will no longer be hiring out their hall. And as people probably know, that's where we've held our annual flower and vegetable show for the last umpteen years or so. So that gave us a little bit of a problem, and after contacting several possible venues, all to no avail, I'm afraid. Luckily, Matthew Waghorn from Stone's Garden Centre at Halfway Road, he has offered us a site within the nursery, and he said that we can hold the show there. So now the plans are underway. It's going to be slightly different probably than other years, but we hope that everything is going to go well. We're excited at the new venue and excited at the chance of having a bit of a change. So I'll let you know more about that later in the year. But it's a date for your diary. It's the late August bank holiday, which I think just off the top of my head is Saturday the 26th and Sunday the 27th of August. But as I say, I'll let you know a little bit more later on.
I think we're next going to cover general maintenance on the allotment.
Yes, indeed. Now is the start of a busy time, but as always, we're still governed a little bit by the weather. So what can we be doing? What should we be doing now? Well, one thing is for the sure is that if nothing else is growing on your plot, there is one guarantee that the weeds will still be growing. So dig out any old weeds that have really established themselves, or keep a hoe handy to catch those weeds that are just starting to appear. But this time of the year, you don't want the seeds to fall and germinate, so collect up all those old weeds and put them in a bin, or if you get the chance, burn them. Don't put them on your compost heap either. We don't want the seeds to be given another chance to germinate. When the ground's not too sticky, that's the time to bring out the rotivator, turn the ground and fold in any manure or compost that was spread over the plot just before winter. Or maybe you're one of those people who likes to rely on the good old garden fork. Many people like to start early, so some people may well be saying to themselves, well, I've done all that already. And yeah, that's fine, there's no problem there. So If you've had plants that you've put under cloches and bits and pieces to set them going, as the weather sort of eases a little bit, it's a good chance to just lift the lids or the cloches during the daytime and then just replace them at night. It starts to harden off the plants a little bit. And if you have overwintered plants and crops, give them a feed with a general organic fertiliser. And how about trying a seaweed spray or a nettle liquid feed? And that quite often stimulates them if they're looking a little bit tired just at the moment. Start to warm off areas of soil by covering with polythene. It warms the ground up and it holds the heat in, ready for planting as March goes by and we get on into April. And if you've got some bad weed cover, get some old carpet, lay it over the ground and leave it to black out the old weeds and to kill them off that way. Have a general tidy up of the waste and the debris that might have accumulated on the plot. As always, old sticks and leaves from different trees and bushes. Might have been bits and pieces of debris blown from all over the place. Now, within your tidy up, just clear all those up. And in the shed, if you've got any vegetables or fruit stored over from last year, just give that a good check over, just to make sure that there's not any rot or mould on them. I know that we just recently checked some onions, and although the bunches of onion look good, when we pulled them apart in the middle, some of them are starting to go a bit squodgy and mouldy. So worth a check. It will keep the ones that are good and stop the whole bunch going off. And talking of sheds, if you didn't get a chance to have a tidy up before the winter, now is a good time to have a bit of a turnout, get rid of all the bits you don't want, and make everything neat and tidy again. And if you didn't get round as well to washing and cleaning out all those used pots and boxes, it's the time now to give that little job a go as well. So lots of tidying up that can be done in preparation for planting out.
At the moment with Malcolm from the Sheppey Horticultural Society, all as part of our regular gardening and allotment plot slot. Malcolm normally come in once every couple of months or so, and I think we're next going to talk a little bit about planting this time of year. And I imagine it's one of those things, it's the sort of time of year you want to get on with stuff, but I suppose you can't always.
Well, this is it. And then, of course, people have different ideas of what they want to do. There are those that do. They want to get on with things. And even the weather sometimes doesn't deter them. But personally, me, being a lazy gardener, as I always say, it's still a little bit early for planting out just yet. Although one of the things you should think about is potatoes going in soon. And so if you hadn't chitted your seed potatoes yet, you should be doing that as soon as possible. And actually those early and second early potatoes can be going in now, but they don't really want the weather to be too wet. So again, just be a little bit careful. I mean, you can wait until well into March and even into April before you sow them, and you still get a good crop. But for those who are saying, no, I want to get going, that's fine. And you can sort of think about probably your summer cabbage and spinach and chard and things like those. They can go in now, but protect with a bit of fleece or cloches if the weather turns a bit cold again. And also over the next 2-3 weeks or so, you can also think about your broad beans, your early carrots, swedes, leeks and peas. But again, be careful of the weather and be prepared to protect them with a bit of fleece or something. And if the weather's not too good, you still want to get going, well, you've still got the greenhouse, obviously, so you can stow things like your tomatoes, your beans, your salad crops, all in the greenhouse. And once they've germinated, once they get to about 2 inches tall, try and put them somewhere that's a little bit cooler. You want to stunt that growth. You don't want to end up with a lot of lanky, spiky plants that don't do too good once you actually do put them out. So if you can stunt the growth a little bit, you can keep them not growing too fast, they'll be fine for when the weather goes well. There are lots of other bits that you can start and put in again. depending on what you want to use for your plot and what your personal taste is. But again, if you start growing them off early in the greenhouse, just watch that they don't bolt and go too spindly. But those are the sort of things you can think about planting now and again in your allotment.
So we're sort of going to look a bit ahead now over the next couple of months.
Yes, yeah. So April and May. April is the time really to start doing all those things that I've just been speaking about. So your garden maintenance should now be up to scratch. You should be all prepared and ready to go with all those plants, and you should have decided what you're going to put and where, and off we should be going. May particularly is the time when everything should be full steam ahead. But here's a few ideas of things that if you've not already done that you should be starting to think about. So if the weather settles down nice, and we hope that by then it should be, you can now start to remove those cloches and coverings, and on a permanent basis things should be sort of fairly safe now. If you haven't finished putting those potato seeds in, or if you haven't finished putting potatoes in, then that should be done now. Should be able to get those in now, and when they start growing, be prepared to keep earthing them up. That will help your final yield. That will keep them well covered and keep them growing and growing. So all the transplanting now, all your seeds that you've grown from seed, they can be hardened off, and over the next few weeks they can be slowly hardened off, put outside, and they should be fine. Onions and shallot sets, they can be planted during April and May, and they should do you well. And of course, salad plants. Everybody wants salad for spring and the summer. And of course, if the weather's getting good now, they can all go in. They're pretty robust anyway, so you should be able to get them in, and they should be fairly safe. Weed around your fruit plants. They will start in now to do their thing, and give them a feed using a well-rotted farmyard manure, but not too much. You don't want to be burning the roots and the bases too much. Start protecting all your fruit bushes now, but use a gauge of covering or a gauge of netting that stops the birds getting in, but it doesn't stop the bees getting in to pollinate. So that's another job you can do. And if it turns particularly warm, if things like strawberries start producing fruit, nip that off now. Don't think you've done well and you're going to have some early fruit. The best thing is to nip off that early fruit, and that allows them to grow stronger and give you a much better crop later on. So hopefully, as we get into April and May, it'll be warm enough to also start putting in your runner beans and your French beans, sweet corns, and all those things that you plan to do to grow. All the things that you particularly like and you particularly want to grow. You should now be pretty safe with any of those things now, putting them in. And if you rely not so much on growing your own seeds, but if you sort of rely on buying plants from nurseries and places like that, boot fairs or whatever, they can go in. They can go in okay, but again, just keep a little bit of an eye if there is any deviations in weather. So go ahead over the next couple of months, get everything going, and just sit back and wait for your harvest.
And I think we're going to next move on to in the garden.
Yeah, well, probably as you look out into the garden now, as we all do, they look pretty sad and pretty dull and drab, but don't worry, because so does everybody else's. But we get, with a little bit of sunshine that we've had, we now start itching to get going. The one consolation we have got, though, is spring bulbs should now be showing themselves through, so at least we can enjoy the start of a little bit of spring colour. Once the heads have died off them, pinch that head out, but leave the leaves to die down naturally. So March is a good time to order your summer flowering bulbs, such as dahlias and gladioli, which can be put into pots and placed in the greenhouse. And as per the allotment, it's tidy up time. Paths, patios, decking, they can all be cleaned down, jet washed if that's what you do, clear debris from ponds and water features, any algae that might have formed, try and get rid of that and to freshen up the water. So if any of those jobs you didn't get around to before the winter, now is the time to sort them out. Go around the garden, remove any old bedding that's did not survive or has died off over the winter time. So start and think about what you're going to replace them with. Is it going to be the same again, or have you got a new plan? Cut out any rotted sections of shrubs and climbers, and also you can now pretty safe to prune back old dead growth back down to new growth. And as with the allotment, you won't guarantee that the weeds will be there and going strong. So start and hit them now, hook them out, get rid of those so you can start and get on top of the job. But with dandelions, don't be too quick to pull out the dandelions. Not just yet, because they are one of the earliest flowering plant and are most important for bees just at this time. The dandelion, it may well be a weed, but at this time when there's not much other flora about, for the bees, they are essential. So just bear with the old dandelions for a little bit longer. Roses, well, the old saying is you prune back in the 3rd week of the 3rd month and you cut back to the 3rd outer facing bud. So March is upon us in a couple of days. So that's the time to have a go at the roses. I know some people say no, I cut them down further, and I have to be honest, so do I at some time, and they still survive. But that is the old saying to do with roses. Mow the lawn's looking a bit rough now. Again, don't be too eager. There's still a lot of wet and cold about, and if you cut down your lawn too short, it can damage your lawn, and of course you can churn it up with the mower. And when you do eventually get round to mowing, again, that first cut or two, don't go too low. Cut on a higher cut and let them gradually get used to getting shorter and shorter, and it causes less damage. The 21st of March, well, that's the official day of spring, which means that nurseries will be aflow with bedding plants. So if you buy yours and you want to plant them out this time of the year, no problem with that. But again, just keep an eye on that weather. If there's going to be too much rain or too cold, just protect them a little bit. You don't want to lose them early. And the nurseries probably won't be happy with me saying that because they know you go back for a second lot. But yeah, just be a little bit careful. And so also as we go through April and May, hanging baskets now can be planted up. But again, don't be too eager to put them out. Keep them protected until they're well established. And even though now the winter is on its wane, continue to feed the birds and put out water for them, because they would have come a little bit dependent on you. So until they can find other natural sources, keep the feed going for them. And a reminder, Mothering Sunday, or Mother's Day as they call it now, is the 26th of March. There are not many mums who wouldn't say no to a fresh flowers cut from a local flower shop or a beautiful indoor plant. So 26th of March, just remember.
Talk a little bit about the soil on the island. Now it's very clay, and is that a problem for gardeners and people on the allotments?
Yeah, well, you're right, Daniel. We are predominantly clay here on the island, and when you talk about gardening or say that you've got an allotment, people will say that, oh, my garden's so clay, how on earth do you do anything? Well, if you look round the island at the abundance of beautiful gardens and well-stocked allotments, then I wonder if problem is a bit harsh. But obviously clay does cause extra work. Now, in some ways, clay is a bit of a bonus, because although it's very dense, sticky and heavy to work, a tray of clay underneath your topsoil can retain water and other nutrients that drain out of other sandy soils much quicker. So the answer lies in what you put into the clay to help break it up. And there are many sort of good quality now composts, well-rotted manures, there are soil conditioners and mulches of rotting leaves. All these things you can put in and gradually break down that clay and get a very nice fine topsoil. Initially, yes, it does cause extra work, and it is quite hard work to work the clay. But once it is broken down, it works just as good as other soils. So if you dig into that clayey garden thinking, oh, I'm never going to have a garden here, you're going to have a bit of work, but you will have a good garden as good as anybody else. So don't panic with clay, just be prepared for a little bit of work.
We're talking at the moment to Malcolm from the Sheppey Horticultural Society, all as part of our regular gardening and allotment plot slot. And I think we were going to finish off by talking a little bit about herbs.
Yes. Do you know, Daniel, at one time, nearly every vegetable garden had its herb garden as well. But over the decades, as cooking styles changed and more processed and pre-prepared foods became more widely used, the poor old herb fell out of favour. But now, with the popularity of all sorts of cookery programmes on the TV, people are once again getting interested in cooking food and growing their own herbs. So I won't go into too much detail about growing herbs because they're all fairly simple, really. They're reasonably easy to grow. Slight variations depending on the slight different herbs, but nothing that's difficult. And most of the herbs can be grown in your garden and even in pots indoors. So what I'm just going to go a little bit Jamie Oliver and give you an idea of a few of the different types of herbs and what their uses are, to give you a bit of thought about what you'd like to try. So, for example, basil, it's used in many of the tomato-based and pasta dishes, usually the Italian dishes. Chervil, it's a mild aniseed flavour and it flavours eggs and fish really nice, and it's good sprinkled on a salad. Chives, well, that goes with fish and salad dressings. Also, chives are good as a garnish. And by the way, if you didn't know, aphids are not keen on chives, so dot a few plants around your flower borders to protect your plants a little bit. Coriander, well, that's used in curries, both Indian and Thai. It's used in soup and also can be added to salads. Dill, that's good with fish, especially smoked fish. Fennel has that aniseed taste that traditionally is used with, again, fish and with fatty meats. Fatty meats can be enhanced a little bit with a little drop of fennel. Rosemary, well, you may well already know that rosemary is traditional with lamb. Sage, well, you've heard of your sage and onion stuffings. Your sage is used more widely in stuffings and different things like that. Tarragon, can use that to enhance the taste of chicken and fish. And thyme, used a lot in French cookery for soups and casseroles and stews. So that's a few of the herbs that are available. Get some seeds, pop them in the ground, see how easy they grow, and then try them in your cooking. Tell you what, don't have to show the difference. That's herbs for you. Should be more popular than what they are.
Well, if you're happy we've covered everything, I'd like to once again, as always, thank you very much for coming along. It really is appreciated.
And thanks, Daniel, as I said before, for inviting me. Enjoyed again the evening. Thank you.
That is Malcolm from the Sheppey Horticultural Society as part of our regular gardening and allotment plot slot. And no doubt we'll see Malcolm in a couple of months' time here at the Monday Night Community Show.